You're sitting at your desk, the document open, and the deadline close. Slack pings. Your chest feels tight. You reread the same sentence 5 times and don't change a word. The work is in front of you, but your mind is somewhere else. You tell yourself you just need to push through, but what you're really doing is pretending you're not upset. Before you try harder, say this exact sentence out loud or quietly in your head. I am not starting work until I name what I'm feeling in one clear sentence. Then stop typing. Lean back. Take one slow breath. Write a single sentence on a sticky note or in a blank document. I'm angry about that comment in the meeting, or I'm anxious about the email I just got, or I feel embarrassed about how that call went. In the next 10 minutes, something subtle shifts. The emotion doesn't disappear, but it stops being fog. It becomes specific. Your shoulders drop a fraction. The spinning slows. You're no longer fighting a ghost, you're looking at something real. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, financial, or legal advice. This won't rush you, but it will keep you from spiraling. The real pain isn't that you have feelings during the workday. The pain is that you try to work as if you don't. You act like focus is purely mechanical, open laptop, apply effort, and produce output. But when you're emotionally distracted, your attention splits. Half of you is trying to draft a proposal. The other half is replaying a conversation, predicting consequences, or arguing with someone who isn't even in the room. This is costing you more than time. It's costing you quality. It's costing you reputation. It's costing you evenings, because you stay late fixing work that should have taken half as long. And quietly, it's costing you confidence, because you start believing you can't focus like you used to. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to do deep work even when your emotional state isn't perfect. Not by suppressing what you feel. Not by indulging it either. But by containing it long enough to regain control of your attention. You'll learn how to offload emotional charge in under 5 minutes so it stops hijacking your concentration. How to separate processing time from production time so your job performance doesn't suffer. How to feel steady at work even when something personal or professional is bothering you. If you value practical tools that protect your focus and your income, subscribe and keep building this skill with us. Subscribe for practical emotional control and focus tools that actually work in real life. First, you'll understand why unprocessed emotion fractures your attention. Next, you'll use a short offload ritual that clears mental bandwidth fast. Then, you'll learn how to schedule emotional processing instead of letting it leak all day. Finally, you'll see how this works under real pressure, when the stakes are high and your feelings are loud. And later, we're going to walk through a specific moment. You leave a tense meeting, sit down to work, and feel that post-meeting agitation buzzing in your chest. Instead of losing 2 hours to it, you'll handle it differently. Right now, understand this: deep work is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to decide what gets your attention, and when. You just got off a call. It didn't go well. Someone questioned your numbers in front of the team. You stayed composed, but your jaw tightened. Now you're back at your desk, staring at a report you need to finish by 3 p.m. You try to type. Instead, you replay the call. You think of what you should have said. You imagine the next meeting. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. Here's the microscript that interrupts that spiral. I will give this feeling 3 minutes on paper, then I return to the task. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Open a blank document. Write without editing. No structure. No politeness. Just raw clarity. I'm irritated because I felt undermined. I'm worried this will affect how I'm seen. I'm frustrated I didn't respond more firmly. When the timer ends, stop mid-sentence if you have to. Then say, processing time is over. Production time begins. Why this works is simple and physical. Emotion demands acknowledgement. When you ignore it, it escalates. When you indulge it, it expands. But when you confine it, time box it, it settles. Your nervous system shifts from agitation toward regulation because it feels heard. This is not journaling for self-discovery. It's containment for performance. In a North American office culture, you're expected to be on all day. Meetings stack. Emails pile up. Slack never stops. There's no natural pause for emotional processing. So your mind steals one during deep work. That's why you lose focus, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is trying to close an emotional loop. The 3-minute offload closes the loop just enough. Here's the friction point. You'll resist this because it feels unproductive. You'll think, I don't have time to write about feelings. But you're already spending time thinking about them, just without structure. The difference is that unstructured rumination drains energy. Structured offload drains pressure. Tiny action for today. Before your next major work block, even if you feel fine, ask yourself, is anything lingering? If yes, give it 3 minutes on paper. Timer on. Timer off. Back to work. Slow practice moment. Sit back right now and notice your breathing. Is it shallow? Is your chest tight? Name one word for your current state: calm, tense, distracted, irritated, neutral. No story. Just the word. That naming alone lowers internal noise. Another example. You're at home, but you still have 2 hours of remote work to finish. Your partner made a comment earlier that stung. You haven't addressed it. You open your laptop, but your attention keeps drifting. Instead of forcing productivity, you write, I'm hurt because I felt dismissed. I don't want this to become a bigger issue. I'll address it tomorrow evening. That last line is critical. You're not solving the relationship in the middle of your work block. You're scheduling emotional resolution. This protects your focus. Stoic thinkers emphasize distinguishing what's within your control from what isn't. In this moment, you can't redo the meeting. You can't control someone else's tone. But you can control where your attention goes for the next 45 minutes. The offload ritual reclaims that control. This matters later because deeper in the lesson, when pressure increases, when deadlines collide with personal stress, you'll need a reliable reset. If you can't handle mild agitation, you won't handle high-stakes distraction. One more refinement. After the 3-minute write, identify one sentence that represents the core of the emotion. For example, I feel threatened about my credibility. Then respond with a grounded counter. My next action is to finish the Q4 analysis. This pairs emotion with direction. Feeling acknowledged. Action chosen. You don't need to feel perfect to work well. You need your emotions contained enough that they're not steering the wheel. And that containment starts with 3 honest minutes and a clear return to task. It's 7:30 p.m. You're home. The meeting ended hours ago, but your body still feels like it's in the conference room. You're reheating dinner, barely listening to what your partner is saying. In your head, you're arguing with someone who isn't there. You imagine sharper responses. You replay their tone. You feel your pulse rise again. The mistake isn't that you're angry. The mistake is that you're trying to think your way out of a body-level reaction. After a tense interaction, your nervous system stays activated. Adrenaline doesn't disappear just because the calendar event ends. So when you sit still and replay the situation, you're pouring mental fuel onto physical fire. Here's the correction. Discharge the body before you debate the story. Use this simple sequence. Move for 2 minutes, breathe for 1 minute, then evaluate. The script sounds like this. My body first. My story later. Why this works is biological, not motivational. Emotional charge lives in the body: tight shoulders, clenched jaw, shallow breath, restless pacing. If you try to solve the narrative while the body is still charged, your thinking will be distorted. You'll exaggerate, personalize, and escalate. Start with movement. Not a workout. Not a run. Just deliberate motion. Walk briskly around the block. Do 20 push-ups. Climb stairs. Shake your arms out like you're drying them. The goal is to burn off stress chemistry. Then breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale slowly for 6. Repeat for 1 minute. Longer exhales signal safety to your nervous system. Only after that do you ask, what actually happened? Notice how different that question feels after movement. In a North American workplace culture, confrontation is often indirect. Someone might say, let's revisit those numbers, in a tone that feels dismissive. You leave feeling attacked, even if no one raised their voice. That ambiguity fuels replay. You're trying to decode tone, intention, politics. But decoding requires calm. Here's a short tense story. A manager challenges your timeline during a project review. You respond defensively. The room goes quiet. Later, you feel embarrassed and angry. At home, instead of moving, you sit and scroll while replaying the moment. By 10 p.m., you're more upset than you were at 3 p.m. The mistake, you let rumination replace regulation. The correction, interrupt the loop physically. Tiny action for today. The next time you feel post-meeting agitation, stand up immediately. Don't negotiate. Don't check email. Don't sit and analyze. Stand. Move. 2 minutes minimum. Pattern interrupt right now. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Take one slow exhale longer than your inhale. Feel the shift. You may notice that after movement and breath, the story softens. Instead of they humiliated me, it becomes, they questioned a detail publicly. That difference matters. The first is identity-level threat. The second is situational friction. From there, you can apply calm evaluation. Was their criticism valid? Did I misunderstand tone? Is a follow-up email necessary, or am I protecting ego? Stoic philosophy often emphasized perception over event. The event is fixed. Your interpretation is adjustable. But perception can't be adjusted while your body is still in fight mode. This is why so many professionals carry workplace irritation into their homes. They never completed the stress cycle. So it leaks into short answers, into impatience, into insomnia. The forward pull here is important. Later, when we integrate everything, you'll see how physical discharge, structured offload, and calm language combine into a system. But without this body-first correction, the system collapses. One more refinement. After movement and breath, say this out loud. I don't need to solve this tonight. That sentence prevents escalation. Not every irritation needs immediate confrontation. Some need sleep. You're not weak for feeling the charge. You're human. But discipline means handling the charge deliberately. Body first. Story second. When you master that order, you shorten the emotional half-life of anger dramatically. And your evenings stop being hostage to your afternoons. There's a common belief that if you ignore your emotions, they'll fade and you'll get over it faster. That belief is false. Ignoring emotion doesn't remove it. It buries it, where it leaks sideways into distraction, procrastination, and subtle self-sabotage. Here's the myth. If I just focus harder, the feeling will go away. Here's the reality. Unacknowledged emotion splits attention. When you try to power through without containment, your brain keeps scanning for resolution. You reread the same paragraph. You check your phone. You open new tabs. You call it lack of discipline. It's not. It's divided attention. So here's the clear instruction. Schedule your emotion so it stops interrupting your work. That sounds strange at first. Why would you schedule a feeling? Because unstructured emotion leaks. Structured emotion stays contained. Use this exact script at your desk. I will think about this at 4:30. Right now, I'm working. Then write a quick note, 4:30, process meeting frustration. That's it. You've created a boundary between production time and processing time. The stakes are high here. Without this boundary, emotional distraction becomes chronic. Chronic distraction lowers output. Lower output increases stress. Increased stress creates more emotion. It becomes a loop. Let's stress test this. You're at work. It's 11:15 a.m. You just received an email that feels passive-aggressive. You feel your stomach tighten. You want to fire back. Or you want to reread it 10 times. Or you want to vent to a coworker. Instead, you say, "Not now." 4:30. You jot it down. Now comes the slow practice moment. Take one breath in for 4. Out for 6. Look at the task in front of you. Identify the next physical step. Not the whole project. Just the next physical step. Open the spreadsheet. Write the header. Draft the first sentence. When your mind drifts back to the email, you don't argue with it. You repeat. Scheduled. That word becomes your mental fence. Why this works is simple. Your brain relaxes when it knows something won't be forgotten. Unfinished emotional business is like an open browser tab. Scheduling it closes the mental loop temporarily. Now here's what happens at 4:30. You sit down with the note. You give yourself 10 minutes. You can journal. You can analyze. You can decide whether to respond. You can even choose to let it go. But you do it deliberately. This is not suppression. It's containment. In North American work culture, productivity is rewarded. Emotional regulation is expected, but rarely taught. So most people either vent impulsively or bottle everything up. Both create consequences. This method does neither. It creates a third option, controlled processing. There's another layer here. If, at 4:30, the emotion still feels intense, combine what you learned earlier. Move first. Breathe. Then evaluate. Body before story. Now, a warning. Do not use scheduling as permanent avoidance. If the same issue keeps appearing in your 4:30 slot for 5 days straight, that's not a distraction problem. That's a boundary or communication problem. And it will require action. But most daily irritations don't need escalation. They need clarity and timing. This structure prevents one tense moment from ruining 8 productive hours. And here's the subtle benefit: you start trusting yourself. You trust that you won't forget what matters. You trust that you can return to it intentionally. That trust reduces background anxiety. We're not aiming for emotional numbness. We're aiming for emotional authority. You decide when something gets processed. You decide when it gets addressed. You decide when it does not deserve more attention. Later, in the integrated example, you'll see how this plays out when the stakes feel personal, when the comment wasn't just about a project but about you. For now, understand this: deep work requires emotional containment. Not perfection. Not silence. Containment. Schedule it. Return to it. Handle it calmly. That's how you protect your focus without betraying your feelings. It's 2:10 p.m. You're back at your desk after lunch. You plan to finish the proposal by 4 o'clock. Then your phone lights up. It's a message from your partner. "We need to talk tonight." No context. No explanation. Your chest tightens instantly. Your mind starts filling in blanks. Did you forget something? Is something wrong? Did you say something last night? You stare at the document, but you're not reading anymore. This is where old habits almost win. Old pattern: pick up the phone. Ask what's wrong. Scroll through previous messages. Replay recent conversations. Open social media. Escape the discomfort. But you remember the reset. First, you don't reach for the phone. You put both feet flat on the floor. You inhale slowly for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6. Twice. Your shoulders drop a little. Then you say quietly, This is anxiety, not information. Already, the spiral slows. You open a blank note and do a quick offload. Fear of bad news. Fear of conflict. Fear of being blamed. You don't analyze. You don't judge. You just empty it onto the page. 2 minutes. You feel about 20% clearer. Now comes the containment step. You write, 7:30 p.m., have the conversation. You tell yourself, I will deal with this tonight. Right now, I'm working. Your brain resists. It wants certainty. It wants relief. You repeat. Scheduled. You turn back to the proposal. What's the next physical step? Not finish proposal. Not make it perfect. Just write the first bullet point under section 3. You type it. Then the anxiety flares again. Old pattern whispers, just check your phone one more time. Instead, you breathe once. You say, not now. You write the second bullet. 10 minutes pass. The emotional charge isn't gone, but it's contained. At 3:05, an email arrives from your manager correcting a small error in last week's report. Your irritation spikes. On a normal day, that might push you over the edge. You'd reread it 5 times. You'd craft a defensive reply. You'd lose another 30 minutes. But you've already done the reset once today. So you do it again. Feet on floor. Slow exhale. Label the emotion. Embarrassment. Then the sentence. This is a correction, not a character attack. You don't answer immediately. You write a note, 4:30, review and respond calmly. You return to the proposal. Now you're not calm in a spiritual sense. You're calm in a functional sense. You're producing. By 3:55, the proposal draft is complete. Is the anxiety completely gone? No. Is the irritation erased? No. But your work is done. That changes everything. At 4:30, you open the email. The emotional charge is already lower. You reread it. It's less sharp than you remembered. You draft a simple reply. Thanks for catching that. I'll update the report and resend. No edge. No sarcasm. No over-explaining. Then, at 7:30, you sit down with your partner. It turns out we need to talk was about scheduling a trip with their family. All that fear? Assumption. This is the part that matters. You didn't let a 2-second message hijack 5 hours of your life. You didn't pretend you had no feelings. You didn't suppress them. You processed them in controlled windows. And here's the deeper shift. You prove to yourself that emotion does not have to equal reaction. Your old pattern almost won twice that day. It almost pulled you into doom scrolling. It almost pulled you into defensive email drafting. But structure beat impulse. You went from reactive to intentional. From scattered to direct. And you ended the day tired, but not drained. That's the difference. Not the absence of emotion. The presence of authority over it. The meeting, the message, the correction, none of them owned your attention. You did. When emotion hits during the workday, you have 2 options. You can react and let it scatter you. Or you can respond and stay intentional. Reacting feels automatic. It feels justified. It feels urgent. Responding feels slower. Structured. Controlled. But reacting leaves you fragmented. Responding keeps you steady. Scattered attention drains your output and your confidence. Intentional attention rebuilds both. First, you saw how quickly a single emotional trigger can split your focus. A message. A meeting comment. An unexpected email. The emotion wasn't the problem. The uncontained reaction was. Then you used a simple reset. Feet on the floor. Longer exhale. Name the emotion. That gave your nervous system something solid to hold on to. You moved from vague agitation to specific awareness. Next, you learned to offload the mental noise. 2 minutes of writing. No analysis. No editing. Just emptying. That removed the pressure building inside your head and reduced the urge to escape into scrolling or side tasks. Then you created containment. Scheduled. You chose when the emotion would get your attention. That single act restored authority. Instead of the feeling chasing you all afternoon, you gave it a time slot. Finally, you practiced returning to the next physical step. Not the whole project. Not perfection. Just the next visible action. That's where momentum restarted. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming structured. You don't eliminate distraction by force. You eliminate it by design. Here are your 3 do-today steps. First, use the exact reset sentence once today. When emotion spikes, say, "This is anxiety, not information." Or name the specific emotion you feel. Do not debate it. Do not explain it. Just label it. Second, schedule one emotional processing window. Even if it's only 10 minutes. Write it down with a time. When the thought returns before that time, say, "Scheduled." That word becomes your boundary. Third, identify the next physical step for your most important task. Not the next 5 steps. Just one. Write it on a sticky note or at the top of your document. When your mind drifts, return to that line. These are small actions. But small actions compound. If you keep reacting impulsively, emotional residue will spill into your evenings. You'll bring irritation home. You'll replay conversations at night. You'll scroll longer to numb the noise. Sleep gets lighter. The next day starts behind. If you respond intentionally, the spillover shrinks. You finish work cleaner. You close loops. You rest better. And here's the next layer you'll want to explore. Deep focus becomes fragile when you lack boundaries around access, email, messaging apps, notifications, and expectations from others. If this lesson helped you control the emotional spike, the next step is controlling the input stream that creates many of those spikes. A strong follow-up would be something like: focus, building word blocks that protect your attention. Because emotional control without structural boundaries still leaves you exposed. You don't need to overhaul your personality. You need to install small systems. You are not weak because you get emotionally distracted. You are human. The question is whether you let that humanity run unmanaged or you give it structure. Remember the shift. From reacting to responding. From scattered to intentional. From emotional spillover to contained processing. You can't control when something upsetting happens. You can control what happens next. And that control changes your output, your relationships, and your self-respect. The more you practice this, the faster you return to calm. Not because you suppress emotion, but because you stop feeding it unnecessary time and attention. If this lesson helped you regain even 10% of your focus, imagine what consistent practice will do over weeks and months. Subscribe if you want practical tools that strengthen emotional control and focus without turning you into someone you're not. And remember, calm control is built one structured response at a time.